Hi everyone and welcome to Sideboard Files here on HEDRON.TV. My name is Manuel, I'm your host, and I have the pleasure to have you joining the show, the one and only Joshua Bausch. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Absolutely a pleasure. All right, here we go. We talk about Modern today, and this sideboard we're going to talk about is a sideboard of Abzan Midrange. We will discuss your sideboard choices, Joshua, and then we will go for two specific matchups. Abzan Midrange versus Death Shadow and Abzan Midrange versus Bant Eldrazi. But before doing all this, I would like to have a quick look at your main deck configuration. So here is your list. This is a pretty solid archetype.
Yeah, it's one of the Jundish decks, but here you don't have red for cards like Lightning Bolt, you have white for something like Path to Exile and Lingering Souls. It's more the cards that prey on bigger things, like for example Death Shadow or bigger Eldrazi or bigger creatures that can't get killed by Lightning Bolt or can get jump blocked by Lingering Soul tokens.
Pretty good. And there's still a little bit of room for customization, I would say. There are a few flexible slots. So I would like to know from you, what are your personal choices in this deck?
Yeah, the 4-mana slots you always have in this particular archetype, the Jundish decks. The 4-mana slots. Here I'm playing the Sea Trino. It's for the Abzan colors. It's a creature that's 4/5 and makes a lightning helix. I like this card a lot. It's one of my favorite cards, and every time I can play it, I would like to play it. And right now there are many fair matchups. Death Shadow lists all play Lingering Souls, and this card's a very big trample creature that can pass the Lingering Souls, and that's why I think that right now it's the best creature to play in the 4-mana slot.
All right, okay. Anything else you would like to point out?
Sure, there are the discard spells. Normally you play 7 discard spells like we do or I do. The split normally is 4-2 or 4-3 in Inquisition of Kozilek. But I play 3 Thoughtseize, 3 Inquisition of Kozileks, and 1 Collective Brutality. Collective Brutality is one of the newer cards from Eldritch Moon.
Yeah.
That has many flexibility in it. It can do much stuff in many matchups, and it discards the Lingering Souls sometimes when you get stuck on mana, that you can cast it the next turn, or it's so good against burn because you kill their creature, take one of their burn spell, and drain to life. And when you can do this for this specific matchup, for example, then you won just the game because it's a too big swing for them.
Okay, so it's a card that you're happy actually to see in different points of the game.
Yes.
I mean, it's good at the beginning, it's good in the late game as well. Can be used for different reasons, and you can get different angles of attack, let's say.
Yes, you can attack with different angles with this card, and that's nice to have some flexibility. That's why we see more in the sideboard.
Yeah, sure. So one of the good treasures from Eldritch Moon, definitely.
Yes.
Okay, so let's now go back to your sideboard. So here it is, laid down here before. And let's have a look straight away. You have 1 Engineered Explosives, 1 Creeping Corrosion, 1 Fatal Push, 3 Fulminator Mage, 1 Surgical Extraction, 2 Collective Brutality again.
Yeah.
And 1 Path to Exile, 2 Gideon Ally of Zendikar, 3 Stony Silence. Now, how did you come up with this particular configuration? Is it tuned for your local meta? Is it tuned for more general field?
It's more for the online meta. I saw a list from someone who had many trophies in Magic Online and played this deck as well. And I tried it out and had needed to look into it because I was preparing for GP Copenhagen. That's in a month. And this art of deck, it's always my style, and I want to play a Thoughtseize deck for getting the edge, hopefully getting an edge out of my games. And I didn't change it much. There was one different in Stony Silence. They had, I think, a second Creeping Corrosion, and I changed it to the 3rd Stony Silence because there are more artifacts lists right now with a newer deck, the Crack Clan Ironworks. It's a artifact combo deck, and if you play the Stony Silence on 2, then in this matchup, for example, you basically won. And there are more different artifact matchups you will face if you go to a GP.
All right, okay. So for those who are not really familiar with Abzan Midrange and the construction of the sideboard, we can go a little bit card by card. So I will actually ask you, starting from the top here. Engineered Explosive, what's that for? What are you signing in?
For some creature-based and artifact-based strategies, if you play against a zoo matchup or you play against Death Shadow, they play small, cheap creatures to overrun you or affinity. They play many permanents onto the board, and sometimes you can get more 2-for-1s, 3-for-1s out of it. And it's a flexible removal card.
Okay, pretty solid choice. And Creeping Corrosion, this is a sort of Shadowstorm, green,
Yeah,
green
it's a
basically.
green Shadowstorm with it basically wins you the game. Normally, if you cast it against the artifact matchups. And against Affinity, if they dump their whole hand and you can play it on turn 3 because you play in your main deck the Noble Hierarchs, then you just won the game because they don't have any permanents anymore.
Pretty straightforward artifact hate.
Yes.
All right, okay. We have here removal instead of Fatal Push.
Yeah, we can say it together with the Path to Exile.
Okay, those two.
Yes, those two. That's if you play the fair matchups. So it's like the Death Shadow are kind of like fair matchups. You need to kill the creatures because the discard spells come too late, and then you want to build up more removal spells, and for that reason they come in. If you need more removal spells and the discard spells are too late, you bought in these two.
Okay, just to have more resources to deal with your opponent's threats, basically.
Yes.
Okay, very good. 3 copies of Fulminator Mage.
Yeah, right now there's more matchup like Eldrazi Tron that want to assemble Tron.
The combination of the 3 lands and the Urza's lands.
The Urza Mine, the Urza Power Plant, and the Urza Tower. And for this, you can disrupt them with the Fulminator Mage. Just kick one. They're not like the normal Tron lands, Tron decks that want to play a big creature on turn 3, like the Khan, the Worm Coil, and stuff like this. Sometimes for this, the Fulminator is too slow on the draw. But against them, the Eldrazitrons, they want just play colorless creatures and colorless cards and want to get bigger mana for Walking Ballista. And there you can disrupt the lands and slow them down because they're not that fast. And against other fair matchups where you want to disrupt their mana.
Okay,
the Death Shadow ones, they have many fetch lands, less dual lands, and if you can kill 1 land or 2 lands with Fulminator Mages, they can get screwed, and you win that way.
So you can basically board these 3 Fulminator Mage when you're facing matchups in which you want to be sure that the opponent doesn't have access to all the colors. Maybe
all the colors, or slowing them down.
Or just slowing them down and gaining time, going on tempo strategy. All right, we jump to the next row here. And Surgical Extraction, 1 copy. Graveyard Hate, pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's Graveyard Hate. Dredge still exists. It's even with the ban of the Golgari Grave Troll, Dredge still exists, and you want to have something to play on turn 1 or on turn 0 probably to get their graveyard hated.
Okay.
And I use it for Threadlight opponents. Death Shadow. Again, Death Shadow. We talk about Death Shadow all the time because Death Shadow is the big deal right now. If you can kill 1 Death Shadow, or he play the Lingering Souls and you can get Lingering Souls or Death Shadow with it, it's really good because then they have less threats in their deck that can win the game. Making
sure that basically they don't have the multiple copies of the key cards they use to apply their strategy and win the game. Okay, we go next to 2 Collective Brutality. We discussed already the flexibility and the bonuses given by this card. And I would like to know in which matchups, what is it for? Basically, when you want to sideboard this one in, is for some specific plans against specific decks, I suppose.
Yeah, it's more for the aggro decks, the aggro matchups where you want to kill something, need life, or for against more discard spells. There are flexible discard spells that can get used in different matchups when you play against the Gift Storm deck, for example. Then you have more access to more removal spells and get their spells out of their hand because it's a duress effect without the taking just instant sorceries.
All right. So next we have the Path to Exile, which is more or less in conjunction, you said before, with the fatal push. Is there any other occasion in which you would board it and rather than the fair decks
if you play against sometimes against Eldrazi, you want to kill many creatures with fatal push with Eldrazi, the Displacer, for example, you have to kill. If it sticks, it can win them the game easily. That's why you will board in fatal push, but the Reality Smasher can't get hit by fatal push. That's why you want access. In the main deck configuration, I play 2 fatal push and 3 Path to Exile, so there are just more of these cards added. And because Path to Exiles hits more creatures in the meta for the Eldrazi's. That's why you want
because of the mana cost, of course.
The mana cost, they cost 5, and fatal push can just hit up to converted mana cost 4.
Sure. So this is opens a wider range. So you want to have 4 of those in that particular matchup. And we'll see also afterwards. Okay, and next we have 2 copies of Gideon Alive Zendikar, quite a popular Planeswalker right now.
Yeah, it comes from Standard, and in Standard he's dominating all the time. Gideon is for you have many Lingering Soul tokens, and it's basically fighting the Lingering Souls fight. With you make an emblem, and then your tokens are 2/2.
Yeah,
and now they're better than their opponent.
Definitely,
Lingering Soul tokens, and I would not recommend plussing it against a white player because they have Path to Exile, and it's the best way to kill a Gideon.
Very true.
That's why I always make tokens or make an emblem.
It's like indestructible. I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. It's like all the Gideons.
Yes, you don't want to be in that spot.
Yes, you don't want to be. And if you make, he's a value planeswalker. He makes 2/2s every turn if you want to, and sometimes that's good enough. Against control decks, there are many control decks in the format right now.
Okay, crystal clear. Last but not least, 3 copies of Stony Silence, as we were talking about a little bit before. We just mentioned it, but these 3 copies. 3 because you really need it. 3 because in the matchups you want to side this one in. You really want to see it from the very first hand of the game.
Against the matchups you're bad, you will always bot in 3 Stony Silence.
Yeah.
The worst matchup is the Queen Red Ron, I think. Yeah, it is the worst matchup I've played. And you, even if you're desperate, they have like Expedition Map and all the cycle cards, and you bought in the Stony Silence just for them not cycling or finding the land they want with their artifacts. But otherwise, against the matchups, you play against Crickland, you play against Lantern Control, you play against Affinity. If you play Stony Silence on 2, you probably won the game.
Okay. High chances that this is enough.
High chance that
it's a big problem they have to deal with. Of course.
Yeah, they have to kill Stony Silence, otherwise the deck won't do anything.
Okay, crystal clear. All right, we saw all the cards. We are ready to talk about the specific matchups. And the first matchup I would like to talk about is Abzan Midrange, versus Death Shadow. So in this particular matchup, first of all, I would like to know from you, Joshua, what are the objectives in Game 2?
So, first of all, we have to clear out against what kind of Death Shadow we are playing. There are many different types. The first one that existed was the Giant one. Then now we have Esper, we have Abzan, and we have Crixus. So there are, and maybe 4-color. There are some 4-color lists. And it really depends on against what deck we are playing. But the most used right now, I think, is the Abzan one. Abzan or 4-color one, I think, are the 2 most used.
The most popular variants, we would say, of
the 4-color
Death
is
Shadow.
without red. It's without red. They play for Lingering Souls. They play like Buck with Lingering Souls. I think so. That was like this. And against them, discards are normally too slow, so you can't discard their threats because they play it on turn 2 or turn 3. And if you're not having your discard spells on turn 1, you can't win the game, or you're just too slow or a card down. And your objective is always kill their threats and stick your own threat to beat them down. Okay,
so you want to be able to deal with their threats as soon as possible, and then put your threats on the battlefield, or just use your threats on the battlefield if you have them already to win the game.
Yes.
That's basically it.
Normally, the biggest creature on the field is the Death Shadow itself. So you always want to kill him.
Sure.
Tassigor or Gomag Angler, sometimes your Tarmogoyf is bigger than their threat, and you just have to stick your Tarmogoyf. But you won't bet on that because they play their removal spells as well.
All right, crystal clear. So let's assume now that you won game 1. So in game 2, you are going to be on the draw. What do you side out and what do you side in?
I will board out all my discard spells, so the 3 Thoughtseize, the 3 Inquisition, and the 1 Collective Brutality. And I would board in the Fulminator Mages, because they are Landlight. They want to play Fetch, Shock, Thoughtseize to get faster to their Death Shadow. And they just play 1 of each duel, sometimes in their list, and then you can kill 1, and then they don't have access anymore to the specific color. Mostly you kill the white one because they can't play Lingering Souls then.
Okay, so the white one has priority, let's say, is a priority target.
Because they're all their lands produce black, because every threat of them is black, like Death Shadow or Tassigor or Gomag Angler. Sometimes when they play green, they have Tarmogoyf as well. But no, they go up to the Tassigor Gomag Angler route most of the time, because then it can't get killed by Fatal Push. I will board in more Fatal Push and more Path to Exile, because you want to 1-for-1 them. They don't make that much value. And if you just deal with their threats, play your own threats, you just win the game then by attacking.
Yeah. As you said before, the plan is being able to deal with their threats. So you want to have more removal spells. So the Fatal Push and the Path to Exile going in as well.
And more removal spells and explosives. If you can kill more Death Shadows or their Tarmogoyfs in multiples, then you're getting your hard cards and have more resources to kill more or stick more threats. But you have to watch out, because they're played explosive as well, so don't stick more 2-mana threats on the table or of the same cards. Then if they get 2-for-1s, that's good for them as well.
Sure, you need to be aware of the fact that they actually have a plan that is somehow similar to yours.
Yes, that's similar to
mine. So don't commit too many resources on the battlefield. Yes. Otherwise, you could just perish from the same.
They do pretty much the same as you.
Yeah.
They just cycle and lose life much faster than you, because then you can stick a very, very big threat in Death Shadow. That's sometimes their big disadvantage. If you place the Tarmogoyf on turn 2 and they go down to 9 life, and then you kill their Death Shadow and you attack and they go to 4. So now they have to watch out not to die, because every removal spell can kill them.
Sure.
And sometimes they get too ahead in cycling their life, and 1 hit is enough for killing them.
All right, good.
And the last card we bought in, the Surgical Extraction.
Okay, the Surgical Extraction.
That's a 7 card for the 7 discard spells.
Sure.
Like we said, there are Threadlight. Some play Lingering Souls, play Death Shadow, play Tassigor and Gomag Angler. That's some of the configurations they play on threats. Normally, sometimes they play Snapcaster Mages, but I don't consider them a threats. That's more a value card. Or Tarmogoyf. It depends on the build, on which deck you face. And if you can remove a Death Shadow or Lingering Souls with Surgical Extraction, it's a win for you, because that's the problem cards in the matchups.
Okay, so what I would like to ask you now is, let's assume they were not so lucky in game 1, so you lost. And in game 2, you're going to be on the play. Is the plan still the same, or are there any changes?
Yeah, they're still the same. Sometimes you can go for Gideon, because you go into the Lingering Soul fight, but I think on the play, the Sideboard is better, because it competes with their Tassigors. They play more Tassigors than Gomag Angler, so it's when they play a Delph creature, it's most likely the Tassigor, and he can compete with that. And sometimes the Drain Life is very relevant, because if they go so low on life and you can one time just train them, then you attack them and then they can be dead. Or you attack and they block differently, and then you play the Siege Rhino, you can win the game with it. So I think the Siege Rhino with the body in itself is better than a Planeswalker that can also get killed by flying Lingering Soul tokens.
Yeah, vulnerable, we would say. So you would keep exactly the same plan.
Yeah, I would put out the discard spells, because it's a fair matchup, and you can stay more fair in more removing spells and more disruption spells like Fulminator Mages. You don't need to disrupt their hand because you have to most likely play from your deck, and like all the Jandish decks do. And if you top deck a discard spell, you're not winning the game anymore.
Okay, and the cyber plan that we discussed just now, is it a cyber plan that you would apply for every version, every variant of the Death Shadow deck? Because you mentioned different color combinations and stuff. Or you would change something in certain specific matchups?
I think sometimes you can discuss to get Thoughtseizes for Fulminator Mages on the play, but I think disrupting their mana is better, and the fact that you can top deck the Thoughtseizes later because you don't have that much discard spells. Normally, your deck wants to play Thoughtseize into a 2-mana threat for Crimp Flare or Tarmogoyf. But if you play fair, then you know he's not doing unfair stuff after game 1, and that you can just disrupt their mana or disrupt something else than their hands when they're try to keep some cards.
You could consider keeping the Thoughtseize in and not boarding in the Fulminator Mage, but at the end of the day, I don't see you very convinced about this.
Yeah, I'm not. But I think I thought about it and I tried it out against the Tassigor matchups, because there sometimes are the big threats, and if you don't have a Tarmogoyf, if you can't compete with that, and for the Tassigors and Gomag Engles, you need to have the Path to Exile, or the minus from your Liliana. But when they have lingering soul tokens and stuff like this, then sometimes can get awkward, and that's why I would like to have Fulminator Mage that like blocks, kills the land, and disrupts them, than having a Thoughtseize that's stranded in your hand.
Okay, so basically you tested it, but after, like say, a sample certain number of games, I don't know how many, but quite a good number, you just realized that it's actually not worth the effort, and you just keep on doing exactly what you did for the other versions.
If you have it on the opening hand, it's great. Yeah. Then you if you have always the Thoughtseize on turn 1, you want always the Thoughtseizes on turn 1 against every matchup.
But it's not to be taken for granted that is going to happen.
Exactly. And if only on turn 2 is it one turn too slow or something like this, then it's not worth it.
Okay, so we can just jump to the next matchup. Abzan Midrange versus Bant Eldrazi. And again, as a first thing, I would like to ask you, what are the objectives on game 2?
Kill their threats and win the game with your threats. It's like this style of decks always do. But in this particular matchup, Bant Eldrazi, it's like a mid-range deck, but at some point it can go over the top. So a little bit over the top. And that's why you can struggle. It plays Eldrazi Displacer and Drawn of Hope. The 2 Eldrazi creatures with activated abilities. The Drawn of Hope comes into play, makes 2 Zeons, and you can sacrifice the Zeon to tap a creature. And the Displacer has an activated ability with 1 colorless and 2. You can flicker a creature and put it back tapped
onto the battlefield.
Battlefield. And you can do it with the Drawn of Hope. You may attack, and then you flicker it, you get more Zeons. And so you white the board out and have more ways of controlling the board. And if that happens, it's really bad for you, because there at some point get so many mana, and they have the Eldrazi Temple that nets you 2 mana for the activated ability, so they just have to tap 2 more lands to activate it. And if they can stick their Drawners or Eldrazi Displacers, they go over the top. And with this style of deck, you can't handle going over the top.
So basically, you want to be sure that you have more threat removals to deal with the threats. And also you need to have a strategy that let's say, doesn't allow them to get this board control. So preventing them from controlling the board, basically.
Yes.
Okay, let's assume that, once again, you won game 1. So in game 2, you are going to be on the draw. What do you side out and what do you side in against Bant Eldrazi?
What I side out of the main deck is 2 Neil Spellbomb, because it's just 2 mana, a draw card, and the graveyard is not relevant in this matchup. I will bot off the Collective Brutality. don't do that much. The discard, they don't have instant and sorceries except for Path to Exile and Ancient Stirrings. And Ancient Stirrings, they play normally on turn 1 or turn 2, so it's sometimes too slow. And with Brutality, you want to more flexible. And in this matchup, it isn't. And I bought out one Liliana, The Last Hope, because you don't have time to get that value out of the minus ability. And the +1, it's not killing enough, or it can kill the bird creatures, but that's not enough for a 3-mana card to be played in Modern.
Okay.
Yeah, so what I bought in one Path to Exile, because they have bigger creatures and creatures I want to kill right away, like Royalty Smasher and Drowner of Hope, and then Tornot Seer and Displacer, so you want to hit every one of them with your removal spells. And I bought in the Fulminator Mages, because I want to disrupt the mana. Sometimes it feels a little bit slow, but I think you have to do what you have to do.
Yeah, sure. So the Fulminator Mage allows you actually to slow them down, to prevent them from going really over the top, as you were saying before, and getting control of the board and dealing with your threats and just breaking through your defenses and just win the game. Pretty straightforward plan, I would say. Yeah. And generally speaking, is this a good matchup for Abzan Midrange, or what do you think?
I consider it as 50-50 because they are both midrange decks. You can say it, there is 51% for Eldrazi and 49% for you, because they can go over the top. If they get to go over the top, you're not auto losing, but it gets harder for you.
It gets harder. Okay.
If they stick Displacer and can do some shenanigans with it, then you have a hard time. It's like you go in the top deck war, you're at a winning position. He top decks Eldrazi Displacer with many lands in play. He can play it and just playing 2 more stuff. Then sometimes you can't attack anymore.
Yeah.
And you attack and they just blink your Tarmogoyfs. And he's then it's his turn, and then he draws more lands, and then he can blink 3 cards from you. And if you're not killing it, you can't finish him. And when they're top deck into Drowner, then it gets absurd. And
okay. So it's pretty important actually to be able to kill the Eldrazi Displacer as soon as you see it. This is a really huge problem for Abzan Midrange, so top priority.
Yes. It gets really annoying if they have 2, because then they can Displacer, he can't blicker himself.
But he can blink the other one.
He can blink the other one. And now he has protection from everything, for example, for 3 mana. And that's why you have to kill it on side or as soon as you get the chance to do it.
All right, so I will ask you once again, and I have the feeling that I will get the same answer that I got before, but anyway, I will do it. And the question is, of course, you were not so lucky and you lost game 1, so in game 2 you're going to be on the play. Is the Sideboard plan going to stay the same, or is it going to change?
Yeah, I would go with the same plan.
Same plan, okay.
Because the Fulminator now get better.
Okay.
You can play it on turn 3 and you can need them 1 mana, and if they don't draw the temple, then you get ahead on mana and slow them down.
Okay.
And you still need the Path to Exile, of course.
Sure.
Killing the big creatures and
Sure.
Other considerations in this matchup are the Engineered Explosive and the Fatal Push.
Yes.
But I'm not convinced bringing it in yet.
Okay. Yeah. You didn't do enough tests, I would say.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Fatal Push, the problem with it is that it kills a more narrow list of creatures, because everything that goes above 5 or 6 converted mana cost, it just can't be killed with a Fatal Push. Yeah,
it can only kill Tornot Seer, and it can kill Displacer. Sometimes you don't want to kill the small stuff, and sometimes they have, as mentioned, the how's it called, the 2/1 flyer, Sky Spawner.
Okay.
And you don't really want to kill it either, because it's just you can play Lingering Souls and then you can block it.
Yeah,
that's why you always want to have the big kill the big stuff. And 2 Eldrazi opponents I played, they bought it out Tornot Seer, because they are just get killed or outclassed by your creatures.
Okay.
And
so you have to consider that as well.
I have to consider that they don't disrupt my hand anymore, and if they don't play Tornot Seer, Fatal Push just get worse.
Okay, so considering the test that you did so far, basically the safest sideboard plan against them is what you said before, and just boarding in the Path of Exile and the 3 Fulminator Mage.
Yeah, I would recommend going Thoughtseize into Tarmogoyf. It's always a good start.
Yeah, sure, but that, as you said, it's not really something you can control all the time. But you can mulligan aggressively, of course, but could be pretty risky.
There are many hands that I would keep than just mulling into this configuration of cards.
All right, okay. Well, all crystal clear. So I would say that's it for this episode. Thank you very much, Joshua, for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
And a big thank you to all of you who've been watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, because we surely did. And stay tuned on HEDRON.TV for more content to come. For now, it's goodbye.
Goodbye.